About 30 years ago, or maybe even longer. Actually, it was longer. Let's see, if I had stayed married, I would have been married 40 some years ago. So let's say 40 some years. My now ex-husband's first wife worked for the company that sold Benson and Hedges cigarettes 100. And she was kind enough, because of part of her sales, to send me this cookbook, which, as you can see, is now falling apart. So I'm on page 31 of this cookbook. Well, I was like, okay, she knows she knew I loved to cook. So I found this recipe, and I probably can't pronounce it, even though I took French years ago. Poulet au quarante morceaux de lait, whatever. Anyway, it's called chicken with 40 cloves of garlic. Come along with me and see how it's done. Okay, welcome, welcome, welcome. This recipe, I normally, when I first cooked it 40 years ago, I used my, alright, that's upside down, Magnalite. Now this is a small pot, but I had a huge roaster. And it's a heavy roaster, and I made this meal in that. At the time, I had a pack of chicken legs and thighs, which it calls for 8 chicken legs cut into drumsticks and thighs. So I had that. So I was at the store, and they had a nice pack of thighs. The other night I was coming in from a trip to Washington, D.C. area, actually National Harbor, and I wanted fried chicken, and then I got home and decided I didn't want it. But I have that. I am going to use 4 thighs in this recipe, even though it calls for 8 legs. So it would be 8 thighs and 8 legs. But I'm only going to use 4 thighs, because normally in one meal I can only eat 2. Okay? Only eat 2. Now, as I was saying, I cooked this in that heavy pot. Another time, I thought about it the night before, and I decided to put it in the crock pot. Well, from that day on, that was so good that I continued to cook it in a crock pot. But today, I am going to cook it in my electric pressure cooker, my Power Pressure Cooker XL. So that's what I'm going to cook it in. That's it, this right here. And we're going to cut up everything and layer it into the pan. The directions tell me rinse the chicken in cold water and pat dry with paper towels. Now this calls for olive oil. I do not use additional oil in this recipe because chicken has a lot of oil in it. I mean, there's a lot of fat that comes out of it, so I have never added the additional 2/3 cup of olive oil. I will put it in the directions below, but I've never added it. It's for 4 ribs of celery thinly sliced. I've already washed this celery. I always like using the tops, and this is going to be a lot of veggies, and I thinly slice my celery. You can use the outside ribs like this and use all 4 ribs and cut them slightly. But these inner ribs of celery, they are so tender and they cook up so very nicely. Well, it is the September time frame, and allergy season seems to have arrived. And I went outside to do a little harvesting. And I harvested a ton. I've got so much basil outside, it's ridiculous. It's all going to seed. And I just went through and harvested a ton of it. Right now it's sitting in the sink over there in cold water to rinse off. Now I think I've told you all before, in my garden I do not use pesticides. I will use baking soda, Dawn soap. Okay, first batch. Dawn soap and some neem oil, which is a natural insecticide. It basically kind of smothers the bugs. Alright, so I harvested parsley while I was out there. It's been out there I haven't harvested any in quite some time, so I really needed to harvest some so it would grow some more. That's the thing about a lot of these cut and come again items. It's already been washed and rinsed off. This has some bleaching from the sun. It calls for 6 sprigs of parsley. Now I know some of you do not like parsley. I actually love parsley. I actually make a parsley salad. So 6 sprigs. I've got more than about 6 sprigs here. So this is about all I'm going to put in there. Now I have dehydrated parsley in there that you can use. You probably would use for 6 sprigs, I'd say probably a couple tablespoons of dried, or a tablespoon of dried. Alright, into the pot this goes. Okay, oops. Alright, it says 1 tablespoon of tarragon. I had never heard of tarragon until this recipe, and it is so sweet smelling. Oh, it smells so good. So I got this big container of leaf tarragon. Alright, I'm going to use a half a tablespoon in this because I love the way it tastes. I love the way it smells. Alright, a little bit more. Alright, lay the chicken pieces on top and sprinkle with vermouth. Well, I'm adding one more thing to this. My favorite little veggie is onion. Now, you do not have to add onion if you don't like onion, but I do. So we've got celery, parsley, tarragon, onion. Now, I'm going to open up my chicken. I'm going to take 4 pieces and wash them off, and then put them in the pot. All washed. Now in the pot. Got my nice skin. Now there was a time I also took the time to fry it real quick. Just brown the outside of it. That was okay. It was cool. I like that. Alright, so now just lay the chicken pieces on top of the and sprinkle with vermouth. Yes, extra dry vermouth. I've had just dry vermouth, and this is a new bottle. Vermouth, half a cup. Well, in this case it should be about 1/4 of a cup. This is 1/3 of a cup. Yeah. Now you know when you cook with alcoholic beverage, it does burn off the alcohol. But I used 1/3 of a cup. I know it was a little bit more than what it called for. We need some salt. It calls for 2 1/4 teaspoons of salt, which for me is a little lot. So I'm just going to sprinkle some salt over the top. That's about 1/2 teaspoon. And with pepper, it calls for a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. Let's see, I gotta turn this around so it's opening. And that's about right, or a little less than a 1/4 teaspoon. And this is restaurant style pepper, so its pieces are a lot bigger. Alright, so I got my salt, I've got my pepper, nutmeg, and it's 1/8 of a teaspoon of nutmeg. Now, my nutmeg is whole nutmeg. I have a little grater that came with it. Now, one thing I didn't realize is nutmeg, you don't use that much, but I have a whole thing. And I just use this, and I sprinkle. I like to taste that, all these flavors, right? And I sprinkle the nutmeg on top. All right, so that is at least 1/8 of a teaspoon or less of nutmeg. Now comes the really good thing. Now, I told you in previous videos that I buy the pre-peeled garlic, and I put it in this container smothered with olive oil. So we're gonna, I took that lid off. That garlic is smelling like crazy. Now the recipe says 40 cloves of garlic peeled. I'm going to put approximately 10. That's 2. That's 4. That's 6. Oh my friends at work. And that's 10. That's not enough. Okay. 12. 13. You can always use it later. Alright. So I put 13 cloves of garlic in there. Alright, but the recipe, if you use it all the chicken, all 8 chicken legs, thighs and legs, you'll need all 40 cloves of garlic. Now, in the heavy, if you're not using your Instapot or your any kind of electric pressure cooker or a regular pressure cooker, you're not going to do what I did if you use the Dutch oven. If you use Dutch oven or a crock pot, you're going to take and cover the top and seal it with aluminum foil. What you want to do is seal in the flavor, seal in the smell. My colleagues all were going, Beverly, your house is going to smell of garlic. Well, it didn't, because I took and sealed it up with foil. But I can't do that with the pressure cooker. I can't put foil on top. But this pressure cooker, when I put the top on and turn it, it seals it. I'm going to make sure that the valve is closed. Now, I've got the camera on a stand, but let's see if I can show you something. On here, where are you? Slow cook. It has a slow cook one. So, let's see where my chicken went. Nope, it didn't move. Alright, so I'm going to put this on slow cook for 2 hours. It's cooked for the full 2 hours, and the steam has, I let it sit, and the steam has gone. What it looks like. May need to cook a little bit longer. I told you, didn't need any more liquid, but it appears that the 2 hours isn't long enough. Normally when I have it on slow cook, that's with the crock pot, slow cooker, and I put it on for all day. Now this was on slow cook, it wasn't on pressure, right? So I'm going to put it back on while the rice cooks So we now know that if I use the slow cooker on this, I'm going to need to do it about 4 hours instead of 2. So what I'm going to do, now that I know what it looks like, now let's pressure cook it. I'm going to do that. I'm going to put it that so it has the pressure. And I'm going to do chicken meat. And that says 15 minutes. If I do it on medium, so I'm going to do 20 minutes. And this time it's going to pressurize and cook. And then, whoops, wrong direction. So it's going to pressurize and cook for 20 minutes. I will be back. Okay. We have finished. It's just finishing up. It's sizzling in here. I have about a tablespoon of cornstarch. One of the things that's not on here and or in the directions is that I use the juice as a gravy or a sauce over my rice, over whatever I choose to do. You could do noodles, you could do potatoes. Alright, so the steam is off. I let it cook for 20 minutes. I want the steam coming up to the camera. And there's definitely a difference in the amount of juice. And the chicken is almost fall off the bone. And that's the way it is when you take and do it all day in the crock pot. Get this heating up. So I put it on as though I was going to start cooking again. I'm just going to try and start heating up and build the steam. But it's just a tablespoon because I don't want it too much, but there's more juice than I expected. So I am going to put a little bit more of the cornstarch. The cornstarch, you always mix it with a little water. A little cornstarch, a little water, make it a liquid, and then you put it in. All right, that is more than enough. Now it's thick. And the chicken is falling off the bone, which is fine for me, right? You can have it so it stays, thick, but all right. I'm going to turn this off. Look at that. It's cooked. It's nice and thick. Now, and that's off. Now, it's still hot, so it's boiling. Okay, so I have my rice and I have my peas. Rice and my peas. That's my side. I'm going to take my chicken. Oh, it smells so good. Alright, and take the little bit of sauce. So you create the sauce. Oh, and there's the garlic. Alright, now, with the garlic, now, I forgot to turn it on, but I'm going to toast some bread, and the garlic is soft, and I use it, and it's really soft, and what happens is you use it as a spread on the bread. Now let me taste this. Now, I didn't do a lot of salt. Oh, I can taste the garlic. I can taste the tarragon and some of the celery and onion. Yeah, I always like the onion in here. But this is an awesome dish. And it may not be a dish that you have tried. I love fall off the bone chicken, but I really love this dish. This is like my favorite. Get French bread, toast it, and use the garlic to spread on the bread. It is like butter. This is Beverly Fells Jones, the Silver Fox of Consciousness. I hope you decide to try chicken with 40 cloves of garlic, or in this case, chicken with 13 cloves of garlic in your recipe, and write down below or send me an email and let me know how it works for you. As you have believed, let it be done to you, and it is so, and I will see you in the next video.